Hey everybody, welcome to Always Good News. My name is Mark Miller. So glad you're online tonight and joining us. And we're excited about tonight's conversation. And hey, we would love to know exactly where you're watching from. So if you're in Canada, let us know the city and province. If you're somewhere else in the world, let us know as well. We always love to hear where you're joining us from. It's always an encouragement to us. Every week we have these conversations, and I believe that they're going to encourage you, and our prayer is that they always point you to Jesus. And it's no surprise to any of us that we're living in extremely turbulent times, and it's challenging to remain hope and faith-filled with so much bad news coming from what seems like every direction. And so my prayer is that these conversations encourage you, and like I said, always point us to Jesus. So with that in mind, let me just read a scripture that I've been reading this week, and I hope it encourages you. It's in Hebrews 12, and it says, "Therefore we also, since we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, let's lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame. He sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him who endured such hostility from sinners against himself, lest you become weary and discouraged in your souls." And I love how the Message translation says that last line. It says, "When you find yourself flagging in your faith, go over the story again and again, item by item. That long litany of hostility he plowed through, that will shoot adrenaline in your soul." So, hey everybody, welcome from Brazil and from London, Ontario, and all over Canada. Just want to encourage you to keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. Let's remember all that he endured, and let that inspire us as we face these times that we're in right now, to keep, if we're weary, if we're discouraged, keep running the race with endurance. And we are going to get started. And tonight I am so excited to be joined by a pastor from London, Ontario. Pastor Ron Baker.
Hey.
Hey,
can you hear me?
To Always Good News. Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me okay? Good.
Absolutely. Can you hear us?
Yep, absolutely. I can hear you. No problem.
All right, awesome. So good to have you, man. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Listen, if you hear lots of noise or playing behind me, we're getting ready for our Thursday Night Live service. So if you hear music back behind me, it's them getting ready. So if it gets too noisy, I can go outside.
That's the world we're in, right? Everybody is online and not together.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a different kind of together, I guess you could call it. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, we're going to jump in, but before we do, we have a little tradition here on Always Good News called This or That.
Oh my goodness, you didn't tell me about this. Okay.
I know. You ready? Okay, here we go. So you're leaving Costco. Hot dog or ice cream? Oh, we're losing your signal. Let's just wait a second, see if you can come back. All right, you might turn your Wi-Fi off and just use your data.
Yeah, that's what I had. That's what I did. The team's out there using our data or our Wi-Fi, which I forgot about. Sorry about that.
Hey man, technology.
Horrible way to start.
No, it'll only get better from here. Okay, so the question was, you're leaving Costco. Is it an ice cream or a Costco hot dog?
Ice cream.
All right. Risk, Monopoly.
Monopoly. Yeah.
Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve.
Sunburn, bug bite.
Oh man. Sunburn.
Okay, so this is a London, Ontario specific, even though it can be anywhere, but specifically in London. Here's the question.
Okay.
Firehouse Subs or Subway?
Subway.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I just really like Subway, so.
Okay, man, there's no wrong answer.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm
not gonna get kicked off for that.
No, no, we'll finish. Okay, last one. Raptors or Leafs?
Leafs.
Ron. Okay, man.
Well,
Well, that's very telling.
yeah,
Now, I
yeah.
think your brother would have answered that differently if I'm not mistaken. But
My brother would have totally answered Raptors for sure. I think he just posted something recently with all his family in their Raptors attire or something like that. So that's
okay.
him.
Well, listen,
Yeah.
yeah, we know a little bit about you. We know you'd rather have a sunburn than a bug bite. Tell everybody that's watching a little bit more about you, who you are, where you live, what you're about.
Yeah. So we've lived in London since 1996. We moved here. I was working in a church in Ontario. I was a youth pastor, and things didn't go all that great. And so we ended up leaving there, moving to London in 1996, and it was a great move. And we've basically raised both of our kids here in London, and it's been really, truly amazing city to do that in. We've had lots of great opportunities to be involved in the city and stuff. So it's been really, really fantastic. So. Yeah.
So somebody that's not familiar with maybe Canada or even Ontario, give us a little description of where you're.
Yeah.
How far from Toronto? Toronto's, everybody knows where Toronto is pretty much.
Yes. So we're basically 2 hours west of Toronto,
Okay.
and about an hour away is Sarnia and Port Huron. So the States is about an hour from us. It's not too far. Yeah.
And you raise your two sons there, and
Yep.
Rumor has it, well, it's not a rumor, I know it's true, you are a grampy now.
Yeah, you know what? Back end of January, man, my oldest son and his wife, they had a baby, a little girl, and it feels very strange, to be honest with you, to say that I'm a grandfather.
Yeah.
And because I still feel like I'm like 25, 30 years old. So it's kind of like, should I actually is it right for me to be a grandfather? But
Am I allowed?
she's the most amazing little human being. She just brings such great joy to all of us. And I actually put up a little swing in my backyard for her, and she's like, what, 4.5 months old, and
Wow.
and
Yeah,
so it's all in, buddy, all in. My wife actually just I came home after work this afternoon. She goes, I bought a few things for the grandbaby. I'm like, come on, seriously? So.
Well, maybe
Anyway.
I should have added to this or that. Is it Grampy? Is it Papa? Is it?
We're gonna go with Grampy.
Grampy. All right, fair enough. You look like Grampy Ron.
Yeah.
Okay.
You better not say I look like a Grampy.
Right, man. No, it's all good.
Yeah.
Listen, I would love to hear. So, late '90s, moved to London. That's kind of been home base for you for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Pastoring, leadership roles, that kind of stuff. But tell me about your faith journey. Tell me about how you came to know Christ. Is it something you kind of grew up in and wrestled with those questions yourself later? Like how'd that all play out?
Yeah, sure. So born in 1969, first 10 years of our life was in Toronto. My family was fairly involved in the local church there called Bethel Bible Church down on Kingston Road. It's actually transitioned over the years to now it's called Sanctus out in Ajax. That's kind of the connection there. But in 1979, we moved to New Brunswick, and my dad went to Bible college. I had grown up in the Christian home, kind of born in the nursery type thing, and it was very much part of our lives. And 79, moving to New Brunswick, my dad was really sick. He had cancer, and he was mid-30s, and in 1981 passed away. And so my brother and my mom and myself, we just stayed in New Brunswick, right by the Bible college that my dad went to, and so New Brunswick became very much our home. As far as faith goes, it was always there. I can remember as a little boy, accepting Jesus into my heart, that type of experience. I can actually remember very clearly, to be honest with you. I think it was like 5 or 6. Through my teen years, with my dad passing away, it was really a difficult season of faith. It was very difficult to sort through some of the dynamics of what does it mean to follow God, love Jesus, that type thing. But I played the part.
At that point when your dad passed?
I was 11. I was
Okay.
11.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was 11 years old, and then as a teenager, it just became the thing we did. And I mean, I grew up in Awana. I don't know if you're familiar with Awana. Yeah, so that's, and I kind of went through the motions, did the memory verses, did all the stuff, and I didn't come off the rails big time. Like I didn't do, the total prodigal in the sense of just coming off the rails, but there was definitely part of me that was just wearing a mask, playing the game. And I can tell you, it was interesting. I think I was 17 years old, and at church, this will be interesting for your community that listens. I was probably 17, and the pastor on a Sunday morning gave an invitation. He never did this. I'm
Mhm.
sitting in the back, and my heart is pounding. I realized that this invitation is for me. And I said to God, God, if he does it again next service, which would have been that evening, I'll go forward. He gave an invitation Sunday night. Nobody gives an invitation Sunday night. Like, what in the world? Like, it's the committed faithful are there. He gave an invitation. I'm like, no, no. And so I said to God again, God, if this be, if he does it next week, I'll go. Sunday morning, third service in a row. Dude, he gave the invitation. Nobody's going. I felt like I was catapulted out of my seat.
Wow.
And so I knelt at the front. I was 17 and just wept and
Wow.
gave my life fully to Jesus at that point. And things really began to, I think God just started shaping and molding me. And I was always sort of in leadership roles within the church context as youth group and stuff like that. But then things really started spinning after that. So yeah, then finished high school and went to Bible college.
Wow, it's powerful. Every time we have these conversations, it seems like it doesn't matter if you kind of grew up knowing Jesus, grew up in the faith, or having a relationship with God that was active in life, or if you came to faith later. Everybody's got stuff. I mean, for you, obviously,
Yeah.
11 years old, losing your dad, that's huge.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. And I think it's so important that we all recognize it. Every single person has stuff, whether they've been on a faith journey their whole life or just new to it. It doesn't disqualify us from, the Bible says in this life, you will have trouble.
Yeah,
You will have
absolutely.
stuff to go through,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's interesting, Mark. I didn't necessarily question God, although I struggled with the God aspect of things.
Yeah.
But I'm more so, I struggled with watching my buddies play with their dads.
Yeah.
And that really impacted how I saw God in the sense of father. And I've spent a lifetime working at realizing God as the father, and that's always been a bit of a tension for me. But it's I'm not saying he's not my father, just so we're all clear. But you know what I mean. But yeah, so that's part of it.
That's real life, right? That's
Yeah.
That's the deal. So you've been in pastoral leadership for 27 years, which is awesome. But in 2014, you signed up voluntarily to a brand new adventure called church planting.
Yeah.
Man, tell us about it.
Yeah. So, it's interesting being I was part of a church plant in '96 that we joined in on, and it was a fantastic community. It's in all sense and purposes in a Canadian context, it would be classified as a mega church now. And, multiple staff, I oversaw staff and all that kind of stuff, but there was something still in me that was niggling away at me the last few years that I was on staff there. And, I was teaching 40% of the time. I was leading people. It was all great. But then sort of some things happened with a church plant in our city that their pastor had moved away. And then they approached me and said, hey, would you be interested in being our pastor? We need some, leadership. And it was a real sense of, do I do this or not? And then we pitched the idea of blending two communities and relaunching. So we pitched it to them in early 2014, their leadership team, and they agreed to it. I commend them for doing this. I mean, not many churches could do this. They've been around for 8 years, and they just said, yes, we will submit to the leadership of the church that you're coming from and the people that you're coming from. So I spent the first year and a bit really trying to blend two communities, trying to establish vision, values, mission, a lot of work, a lot of energy, early days of blending and replanting sort of this. It's, you gain people, you lose people, you lose people, you lose people, you lose people, and then you gain. And then we decided sort of, because it was an extension of the existing church I was part of, we decided to let it go on its own. Lots of prayer and lots of consideration. And then we launched on our own, and it was phenomenal. And then now it's called Vitalpoint Church. We just changed the name like a year and a half ago. So it's
Vital
5 years. Yeah, Vitalpoint Church. Yeah, it's two sites. Well, right now it's all online, but we have September 2019, we launched a second location in a town just north of London, about 30 minutes north, called Exeter. So that was a whole thing in itself, becoming a multi-site. It was just crazy. So
now I know, like in any good size, even small town Canada, there's no shortage of churches. So
right.
So Ron, why plant a church? What's in your heart, man? What's your passion?
Well, I have a real passion to walk with people, guide people, encourage people who are early in exploring faith. Like, there's nothing more exciting than watching people wrestle with their doubts and their questions, if God exists or not. I know that God has really wired me up that way, even as a communicator, to, like, I'm the primary communicator at our church. So I have, for whatever reason, God has really given me the ability to even communicate to those who are early in exploring. It's not that I don't like walking with people who are wanting to grow in their faith. I can do that. I enjoy that as well. But I think when I look at doing a church plant, what I find is, and I keep calling it, even though we're 5 years old in a multi-site, people trying to tell me we're not a church plant anymore. I'm like, no, we're a church plant. We're going to be a church plant when we're 25 years old, because there's a piece of church planting that is so laser focused on reaching people who are far from God, and laser sharp on what God has called the church to do. So as much as people try to say, oh, you're an established church and all that kind of stuff, it's like, no, I don't want that label, because that label seems like we're moving towards being so inward focused that we neglect those who are outside of the family of God. And I think that, going to Exeter, honestly, it was a total God thing. Like, dude, I was fighting it all the way. In my mind, only mega churches do multi-site. We're too small. We're only 250 people. There's no way God's calling us to do this. And then things just started happening. I'm not kidding you. It was like every day I started journaling, like God was just showing me every day. And the expansion into Exeter has just been phenomenal. Like, It's just been amazing. So
yeah, it's so encouraging. But I do know, and we talked about this just a few seconds ago, stuff happens. And something happened to you guys in January.
Yeah.
Something went missing that was pretty important to the church. Man, tell us about that.
Can you tell I've survived it? I got a bad twitch now. Yeah, dude, because we're portable, both of our locations, our physical locations, are portable. So we have two massive trailers filled with all the gear, very typical to portable church. And Monday morning, January 6th, I arrived at the office. Our trailer is parked behind our office, and I'm working away, getting ready for the Sunday. And a guy comes in the office. He's the snowplow driver. First words out of his mouth: "Your trailer's gone. We saw someone steal it last night." And I was like, this is a church plant, portable church, worst case scenario. Everything is gone.
Well, okay, I got to stop you right there for 1 second. I don't know when performance appraisal time comes, but your son, David Baker, is got a lot of emojis on the screen right now, laughing at the story.
So does he?
I know he pastors your Exeter location, but David, that might not have been the wisest.
So I can't see it. Why can't I see any of that stuff? I can't see any of the hearts and stuff going by.
Yeah, you're laughing about it now, David. I know.
Yeah.
So the guy comes in and tells you the trailer's gone.
Yeah. What's that?
And he saw it stolen.
Yeah, one of his guys was plowing. It was in the middle of the winter, obviously, and it was a snowstorm, and it was yeah, they called the cops, and the police showed up. But here's an interesting thing. I had been wrestling, Mark, with church and how we were doing church for a while. And I'm not sure if it was the Sunday, January 5th, or it was early in December. I either said it publicly or to our staff. I can't remember which. It might have been both. I said, what would we do if we didn't have stage and lights?
Oh, wow.
What would the mission of our church look like? How could we accomplish our mission if we didn't have our stage and didn't have our lights? So I blame myself for the trailer being stolen.
So back in March, did you say anything about what would it look like if we couldn't gather together?
Dude,
Anything like that?
no.
Okay, so we can't pin this on you. Okay.
You can't pin that one on me. But the trailer definitely. And, it's funny, God used this incredible moment for us, and our team was phenomenal. They scrambled. We got rented gear. We got equipment. People were offering stuff. Local churches were, one of the local churches, actually, Gateway here in London, Rick and their team, they rushed in, gave us money. It was just so incredible to watch the church respond the way they did. And that following Sunday, that next Sunday, was the beginning of a brand new series called The Resilient Life.
Wow. And did you have anything you could use as a sermon illustration?
You know what? You know what's funny was the beginning of the service, I was intending on using a whole Rocky movie theme illustration. And then God kind of said, nah, let's use a trailer. That'd be a good one for Resilience. So,
yeah. No kidding.
Dude, I'm telling you, it was. But the city picked it up. CTV London picked it up. They came and they did video, they did stories, and then ultimately we ended up getting tipped off to a guy selling our trailer. I watched it all go down. The police take him down. I was kind of hiding in a car where our trailer was being dropped off, and then it was empty. So then about a week later, a guy called us and said, "Hey, are you that church with all that gear stolen?" He says, "I've got a storage unit here, and I think all your stuff's in it." It was like 5 minutes down the road from our office. So I went tearing down there with a couple of the staff, and we went in, and there was all of our gear with the exception of like cameras, soundboard, and about $20,000 worth of stuff. So it was great. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Ron, man, incredible. We call this always good news. Obviously, we believe the gospel is good news. But it seems like, the media, everywhere we turn, I talked about this at the beginning when we first started, that it seems like bad news is prevalent. It's just hit after hit after hit. If it's not a stolen trailer, it's, everything else that's going on in the world. People are hurting, broken. But part of what motivates us to share and come online and do this is just we want to hear, the good news of what the gospel, the impact that the gospel is making across our country. Man, you got a couple stories out of London, out of the ministry of Vitalpoint, and things that God's doing in your city and in your church.
I think there's two things that come to my mind that are happening. When we look at our Sunday morning being removed, and for us, we were very much hey, come and see, come and experience, bring your neighbors and friends, and that was gone. I really started wondering, okay, what does the sort of the evangelistic edge look like going online? What is the impact going to be? When you begin to put out the good news of who Christ is, you begin to communicate truth in a way that people are drawn to and the Spirit begins to use in very powerful ways. The unexpected happens. And so one particular story, a guy texted me and said, "Hey, I'd really like to do a physical distancing coffee at your office. I've got some things to share with you." And I'm like, okay. And he came into the office. This was about a month ago, and I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. This guy was around for a while, a few years prior, and he said to me, he says, "Ron, I binge watched your Vital Moments on YouTube, because we did these little devotionals called Vital Moments." He says, "I binge watched them on Saturday night, and he said God became so real to me." And it went all the way back to a conversation I had with him about Jesus on the patio of my Starbucks that I go to here in Hyde Park. I talked to him about Christ about 2.5 years prior to that. He just was uncertain and not hostile, but just not certain. So he comes in and he's got 2 pages of notes, and he's just sharing with me how God showed up. And he says, "I understand who Christ is." And then a week later, we came for physical distancing coffee, and feel like I always have to say that just to qualify that we were not, in each other's space. And he said, I'd really like to get baptized. Can I get baptized? I'm like, let me think about it. Yes, you can actually.
Yeah.
So we're now trying to figure out how to do, like many churches, how to do virtual baptisms. And that story to me it speaks to how, God can work in such powerful ways and use, like, those vital moments, honestly, were just simple little, oh my goodness, we got to get some content out, and God used it in a powerful way. The other thing too is, and this is generally speaking, you're probably hearing this a lot, is we are watching, not everybody, but a good majority of people are beginning to see this as something extremely positive in their faith, where some of the idols are being stripped away, some of the perception of control is being stripped away. And I'm talking to people right now. I had a conversation this afternoon with a woman from our church, and she said, Ron, I always was I had a comfortable life. I worked, I read when I could, but now I've been able to dial into my faith in a way that's more vibrant and alive. And I'm hearing that more and more and more. And I'm even hearing people saying they're far more connected to our church, even though it's online, which I'm not even sure what category to put that in.
Yeah.
Because I honestly, I think that that's really the work of the Spirit, because there's, to have people say to me, another person messaged me today and said, I've never felt so connected to Vitalpoint. So,
Wow.
but yeah, so those are kind of the two things. It's a thrill. I mean, it's tough as anything.
Yeah.
Like every pastor I'm sure that you've ever talked to, and maybe your own pastor, I mean, everything that a pastor knows about what church, quote unquote, church is supposed to be was stripped away from us. Our identity of speaking in front of crowds is gone. Now we're preaching to cameras, but God's still working and using it, and it's been an amazing pivot. So
Wow, those are super encouraging stories, Ron. Thanks for sharing those.
yeah.
And, we don't want to assume for a minute, even as you and I are having this conversation, but
Yeah.
this is the world now. This is, there's people, and we're getting comments back, and people are connecting all over the world, all over Canada. And we don't want to assume for a minute that you might be watching tonight. Maybe you're in a place of deep discouragement. Maybe you've gone through some stuff like Ron talked about, losing his dad, trailer stolen, whatever it is. Like I said, we've all got stuff, and the world gets turned upside down. And, maybe you're hearing Ron talk about the adventure of walking people through a faith journey. Maybe you're on that journey tonight, and you don't feel like, maybe like Ron, he knew all the answers of God and church and Jesus, but God's calling him, and maybe that's you tonight. And I just want to encourage you, if you're watching tonight and you're in a place where you need to just have an infusion of hope, maybe again, maybe like Ron just said, everything is shaking. Everything that you put your trust and reliance on is not so reliable anymore.
That's right.
We want to encourage you tonight that you can trust Jesus. And Ron, any last things you want to encourage anybody with tonight, just in terms of the faith journey?
Oh yeah, dude. What you just said is so powerful, because one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about when Jesus says, come to me, those who are weary, carrying a burden, and I will give you rest. And what I have found, and what I believe for people tonight listening and watching right now, is that the uncertainty in their lives has taken them to a place where they've recognized that the things that they had placed their trust in are actually not the foundation in which they thought they were building on. They're crumbling. And I love this idea that Jesus says, come to me. I mean, central to a life of hope is the person of Jesus Christ. He is the one who gives rest to our souls. He is, yes, we've had this cultural pause, but there's still an internal brokenness. There's an internal angst. There's an internal panic that people are feeling. And until someone is willing to really humble themselves before God and acknowledge the fact that that turmoil is in there, and they have this incredible hope through the person of Jesus, that they can say, wow, he simply says, come to me. I mean, you can't get any easier than, or not easier, but clearer. Clear is the word. You can't get any clearer than that. Right. It's just come to him. He's actually drawing you right now. And like I was, man, when those 3 times that pastor gave that invitation, my heart was pounding. He described me to a T. My knuckles were white because I was hanging on to the pew in front of me. And I was like, how does he know? Well, he knew because the Spirit knew. And I think someone right now, possibly listening to this, is in that space where they feel being drawn in. They're like, oh my goodness, could this be the answer to the rest for my soul that I so long for? And Jesus simply says, just come to me. And maybe that's my closing thought, Mark, for us, for people who are watching. And yeah, I think that's such a key part. So,
Man, so good, Ron. And hey, if that is you tonight that Ron's talking about, and you just feel like, hey, these guys are talking to me, if you want to click on the link in our bio, actually the first tab you're going to see there is Peace with God. And it walks you through just the idea that not only does God love you, but we're separated because of sin. But the good news is Jesus came to bridge that gap and to restore a relationship. And if that's you, I just want to encourage you to click on that link when we conclude here in a minute, and just follow up, let us know. And we actually have people online that can chat with you 24/7 and answer those questions and just walk with you and maybe start this dialogue. But maybe there's another person watching tonight who all the right answers, but life just seems to be tough right now. We want to encourage you that God is for you. And like Ron said, just come. Cast your cares because he cares for you. You can cast your cares on him. And Ron, it's been a pleasure, man, talking to you today. And I love what God's doing in London. In fact, the Billy Graham Association is, working in London and in Sudbury this year. Obviously, right now it looks a little different, but our hope is to continue partnering with Vitalpoint and other churches in that whole region. And you can find that again online, billygraham.ca. But Ron, how can people connect with you and your church? What's the best way?
Well, we're on all the social platforms, both Facebook and Instagram, Vitalpoint Church, and our website, vitalpointchurch.com. And it's we've got a really active social media presence, and with all the online stuff. And so that's great places to connect and to reach out, especially if you're in our area and you need some connection. Actually, you know what? Now it doesn't even matter if you're in our area or not, right? Dude,
Exactly.
it's like we've got people joining our alpha at times in our in some of our virtual groups from like BC. So it's like, what is happening? So, but join that way would be great. So
make sure you check out Vitalpoint in London. And Ron, bless you and your team there, and you're doing great work. And keep going, man. And it's so good to hear from you tonight. So thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks so much. How do I click off of this? Do you click me out?
And I'll end it.
Okay. Thanks, dude. Take care. Good to see you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.